I'm going to talk about how to solve a quadratic equation. So there are two main ways to solve a quadratic equation. In the first video, we looked at how to solve a quadratic equation by factoring. But today, we're going to look at how to solve a quadratic equation by completing the square. I know I said we might use the quadratic formula, but I thought that was a little bit too complex for this video. So let's get into it. So completing the square is very similar to factoring. And we usually, for factoring, we find the zeros in a different way. But for using the quadratic formula and completing the square, we always set our equation equal to 0. So, for example, let's take a small example here. 4x squared plus 40x minus 300 is equal to 0. So as you can see, this is in the form ax squared plus bx plus c. And what I usually like to do here is make the leading coefficient equal to 1. So how do you do that? Just divide everything by 4. Now you get x squared, 40 over 4 is plus 10x, minus, and then 300 over 4, we can do that if you push that in a calculator, do long division. That's equal to 75, which is equal to 0. So we can add 75 on both sides, and this is where we start to complete the square. So x squared plus 10x is equal to some number which is equal to 75. So pretty much we want to complete the square for this side so that we can simplify it and get our roots. And to find our c value, since we have to make it into the form x squared plus bx plus c, our c value is equal to b over 2 the whole squared, which is equal to, our 10 is b, so 10 over 2 the whole squared, which is 5 squared, which is equal to 25. So we can add 25 on both sides. So now we get x squared plus 10x plus 25, which is equal to 100. And as you can see, usually these types of equations are very easy to factor, since x squared plus 10x plus 25 is equal to x squared plus 10x plus 5 squared, which is also equivalent to x plus 5 the whole squared, which is equal to 100. Since we have this, we can take the root on both sides, and we get x plus 5 is equal to root 100 is negative 10 and positive 10. So we write it like plus minus 10. Now we have two equations. X plus 5 is equal to 10. X plus 5 is equal to negative 10. Subtract 5 on both sides. X is equal to 5. And subtract 5 on both sides. X is equal to negative 15. These are the roots. You can even try substituting them into this equation right here. And that's the answer you'll get. So now let's take a look at another form called the vertex form. So converting from standard form to vertex form is very common when solving for a quadratic equation, since having an equation in vertex form makes it easier to graph the function. So vertex form is y is equal to a times x minus h squared plus k, where h, k is a vertex. Now we have to find the vertex using our old function 4x squared plus 40x minus 300. And we can set this to y. So to find our vertex, that's equal to find our x coordinate of the vertex, or h value, we need to use this equation, negative b over 2a. And our b value is 40, so negative 40 over 2 times 4, which is 8, which is equal to negative 5. Now, we have to substitute negative 5 into the equation. 4 times negative 5 squared plus 40 times negative 5 minus 300. This is equal to 4 times 25. So if we can just do it scratch work. 200, negative 200 minus 300. This is equal to 25 times 4, which is 100. So 100 minus 200 minus 300 is equal to 100. So that's negative 600 is equal to y. So our vertex in this case is negative 5 comma negative 600. So since we found our vertex, now we can write our vertex form equation. So our a is usually the leading coefficient of the function. In this case is a 4. So y is equal to 4 times x, and then our h value is negative 5. But in this case, since it's a negative, it's supposed to be a positive. Since negative over negative 5 is equal to positive 5. So x plus 5 squared minus 600. Now that's our completed vertex form. Okay, now since we found the vertex form of our equation, now it's time to make the graph. Let's start off by making a table for the graph. Alright, so now we have our x and f of x. So as we found earlier, our two zeros are 5 and negative 15. So we can plot that right here. 5, 0, negative 15, 0. And we found that our vertex is negative 5 comma negative 600. So we can use that as well. So since we have these numbers, we can find 4 other points. So let's see, when x is equal to 0, what is y? 4 times 0 squared plus 40 times 0 minus 300. Well, y is equal to negative 300. So when x is 0, y is negative 300. Let's do the same for 1, 2, and maybe 15, since we have negative 15 here. So when x is equal to 1, this is equal to 1, 4 plus 40 minus 300, which is equal to negative 256. Let's do the same for 2. This is equal to 4, that's 16, plus, that's 80, minus 300, this is equal to minus 204. So it's 2 minus 204. Now let's do it for 15. We might need a calculator for this one. So if you have a calculator, you can also use a calculator. This is equal to 1200. I used a calculator, so. Okay, now we have 7 points. Now we can start graphing the equation y is equal to 4x squared plus 40x minus 300. So let's graph the equation. Alright, so with our table for graph here, our x values go up to 15 on both sides. So we can go in intervals of maybe 3, for example. So 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, minus 3, minus 6, minus 9, minus 12, minus 15. So that's our x-axis. And let's see our y-axis. Our y-axis goes to 1200 in this example. So let's do it that way. So it goes up to 1200, negative 1200, negative 600, 600, negative 300, which is our y-intercept, and negative 900, negative 900, or sorry, I meant to say 900, and we can maybe put 200, 100, 400, 500, 700, 800, 9 or 1000, 1100, negative 1100, negative 1000, negative 800, negative 700, negative 500, negative 400, negative 200, negative 100, 0. Alright, so now we have our points for the graph. Now it's time to graph the function. So our zeros are 5 and negative 15. So that's over here, this point. And 5 is about 4, it's about over here. So that's 5 comma 0, negative 15 comma 0. Negative 5, so let's use this. Negative 5, when x is negative 5, y is negative 600. So when x is negative 5, this point, y is negative 600. So that's our vertex for this equation. Negative 5 comma negative 600. It's a little bit over here actually. Alright, now our y-intercept is negative 300. So 0 comma negative 300. When it's 1, y is negative 256. So when it's 1, y is about minus 256. So 1 comma negative 256. When it's 2, it's about 204. So that's like really close, somewhere over there. 2 comma negative 204. And when it's 15, it's 1200. So 15 comma 1200. So we've got about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we have 7 points we can graph. So it's about how the graph goes. So that's it. That's our graph for y is equal to 4x squared plus 40x minus 300. So in this video, we learned how to graph the equation. We learned how to make a table for a graph. We learned how to convert from standard to vertex form. And we learned how to solve a quadratic equation by completing the square. Thank you.